Good evening, students, families, and counselors from across Missouri. Welcome to our session this evening. My name is Michelle Larashi, and I am a college and career counselor at Pattonville High School in St. Louis, Missouri, and it's my pleasure to welcome you this evening. In just a moment, you will hear from our speaker, but first I have a few announcements for you. This session is a Zoom webinar, which means that your camera and your microphone will be off for the entire session. If you'd like to ask questions, which we encourage you to do, please type your question in the Q&A. And our presenter, Miss Annabelle, will get to your questions as soon as she is finished with her formal presentation. We also encourage you to sign up for additional sessions. We have a few more days of this Show Me My Future event going on. You can find those sessions on our website at moacac.org. And finally, this session will be recorded and posted on our website. You can also find all of the recorded sessions from the past 3.5 weeks on our website. So we encourage you to check out all of the wonderful presentations and wealth of knowledge that has been presented over the past month. So without further ado, I would like to turn things over to Miss Annabelle and let her begin her presentation.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. Hello, students. I will show my screen. Bear with me one moment. Right. Well, hello. My name is Annabelle Molina. I work for the University of East London, and I am the Special Projects Manager for the Americas Recruitment Region. And I've been working at the University of East London for 3 years now, but my background is working with the US market to bring students over to the UK, Ireland, and Spain for the last 7 years. So I'm really passionate about the opportunities that international education gives students, and what an exciting time in your life it can be to pursue your degree across the pond. So I'm very excited to be speaking with you today. And a massive hello from London, England, because that's where I am at the moment. So, you know, you're hearing right from the United Kingdom right now. So I wanted to start off by explaining a little bit about London before I go into the actual organization I work for, which is the University of East London. I know a lot of students sometimes wonder, oh, is your organization, does it have a campus in the States, or does it have a campus dotted around internationally? And we don't, but we do have 3 campuses across the London area. But I wanted to premise with London a little bit, because I know some students tuned in today may have visited London, but some of you might have not. But the beauty of London is it is such a well-known city. It's known on a global scale. It's well known for being cosmopolitan, diverse, and just a really exciting place. So even if you haven't visited London, I know a lot of you will have an understanding or a gut feeling of what it would be like. And we love to quote this quote from Samuel Johnson, which is, when a man is tired of London, he is tired of life. And we very much believe that here, because London as a city is constantly changing. It's one of those places that has new events popping up all the time, new buildings, new organizations, and new opportunities for you to really get stuck into. So it's one of those cities that just, you know, it constantly becomes fun every year, and you can never complete all the endless things that you want to do around the city. So if you have any questions about London, it doesn't have to be about the university, do feel free to pop them in. I'd be more than happy to answer them. So now going into more about the university I work for. So the University of East London started off as a polytechnic college in the 1890s, but in 1992 it gained university status as a modern university. Now in the UK, the most modern universities were created in 1992, so it's one of the newly formed universities in the UK. And the benefit of that is that we have been able to really, you know, modernize our campus to really fit our students' living requirements, and to make sure that we're providing the best amenities and the best facilities for our students. And in terms of overall student population, it's 17,000 students, but that also includes students that are distance learning and are not on campus. So that's a whole student population. And of that population, 20% of them are international students. So you still have 80% being from the UK, but you've got a good sizable chunk which are international. And we're talking about all areas of the world. So Europe and Asia and South America and the Americas. So it's a really exciting place to be. And we're a massive believer that having many different cultures in one area, learning from each other inside the classroom is really beneficial, because obviously now we operate on a global scale. You know, I'm here in London today, but I'm speaking to you guys over in Missouri, which is fantastic, which just shows the interconnectivity of the world right now. And that's why international students are so important for our campus, because we all learn from each other. So we have 6 schools within the University of East London, and I'll go into them in a bit more depth in the next couple of slides. So I wanted to show a picture of our campus. Now, we have quite a small campus, but to have a campus in a city environment is very rare in the UK. So the majority of universities based in cities, not only in London, but around the UK, don't tend to have a campus. They have what is called a city campus, where there are different buildings dotted around the city, and you just go to the allocated building for your classrooms. It means your accommodation could be 30 minutes away from your classroom where you mainly study. So what is nice about the University of East London is that we have 3 campuses, and one of those campuses has accommodation. Now, it could be a case that your classes are in the other campus, in which case you would have to commute, but for a sizable chunk of our students, they would be living on campus and studying at the same campus as well, which is really handy. Now, you can see that the campus runs from further than where the parking lot is towards the top of the screen and towards the bottom of the screen here. So the big building in the middle, like the clusters of buildings, that's where the classes are. And you'll see some yellow buildings right by the River Thames in the picture, and that is our student accommodation. So I'm going to flick back to this slide here. So you'll see in the picture below, the bottom picture, that is our student accommodation. And it's a very pretty picture because it is really that beautiful. So you have accommodation right by the water, and so you get the most gorgeous sunsets, and overlooking the water you can see the financial district, which is called Canary Wharf, in the distance. So it really is a great place to be. So flicking back to this slide now, so we have accommodation on campus, and then further on, you can't really see in this picture, we have our sports facilities. Where the US basketball team actually trained in 2012, but I'll go into more detail about that in the next couple of slides. So you will see it is a compact campus. It's not huge, but it really serves the needs of our students. In terms of the accommodation buildings, they're the ones right by the water, and there are a bunch of them that you can't see, which are off the screen. But a huge number of our students actually don't live in accommodation, because we have a huge number of students coming from the London area. A lot choose to live with their families or live off campus, but we still do have a good portion that live on campus too. But that's why we don't have ample accommodation, because we do have various students choosing to live off campus. Now, probably one thing that you've noticed in this picture is the circle in the middle with the train going through. Now, travel is a massive perk in London, very similar to New York, very similar to any of the cities around the the US. You have something called the subway system. Now, this might be underground or it might be overground, but it does the same thing. It takes you to anywhere that you need to go around the city. And that's the same case in London. Now, our transport system is quite extensive. So across the whole of London, we have over 250 different stations. So you can get from all the way to the east of London, all the way to the west, up north, and down south. So it can take up to 2 hours to get from East London all the way over to West London, which just goes to show the sheer scope of the city itself. So it's a really great place to be because it is so big and it is so different in the various areas. But I wanted to mention that particularly because for a lot of our students coming from the US, if they don't come from a city, they will be familiar with cars and they'll be familiar with using a car to drive everywhere. Now, there are some people that use cars in London, but they tend to live more in the suburban areas. Students who don't have access to a parking lot, the majority of the time will not use a car because it really doesn't make sense from a financial perspective, and also because the transport is so great in London, there really is no need to. And I'll go into more about transport in the later slides, but I wanted to make that clear because this transport system is right outside the university, so it makes it really safe for students thinking of taking public transport at all hours of the day. So if you want to take the subway or the tube, as we call it, you just come straight out of the campus, walk down the steps, and you're on the train. And if you come back late at night, again, you just walk up the steps straight onto campus, which means that it's just great because you literally have London on your doorstep for you to access right there. So in terms of, you might be thinking, well, that all sounds great, but how do I apply and how is this different from the US? So in terms of the application, you can apply 3 ways. You can apply via the Common App, you can apply directly via our website, or you can apply via something called UCAS. Now, you might be familiar with UCAS if you are planning to apply to multiple UK schools. UCAS is our version of the Common App. But if you're only planning to apply to 1 or 2 UK schools, if they are on the Common App, it's probably advisable to apply via the Common App, only because it is a free application. And also the UK system, which is UCAS, only allows you to apply to 5 institutions at once. So that's another thing to bear in mind. The cost to apply via UCAS is around $40. But to apply via the Common App or to apply directly via our website, it is completely free. Now, in terms of your application decision and deadline, we do something called rolling admissions for international students, which means you apply and you will receive a decision within 2 to 4 weeks. Now, our application process is two parts. So what happens is you first get a conditional offer and then you get an unconditional offer. Now, if you are interested in applying, I will share my email at the end and I can go through more of the actual application process in more depth. But just to kind of succinctly explain, what that means is that when you apply, you'll firstly be accepted, but you'll be accepted on the basis that you meet the conditions of your offer. So that will be a GPA and either SAT, ACT, or APs in addition to the GPA. But an unconditional offer means that you are guaranteed acceptance. So it's a 2-part process. Now we have a deadline of July 2021 for the September 2021 intake, which I know for US timeline is quite late in the process. But that is very much the UK system that you can apply really right until the very end. However, we really encourage you to apply earlier rather than later, because firstly, it will allow you to get into the application process quicker. It will make sure that you don't miss out on a spot on one of our more popular programs. And it will mean that you're able to really get excited about the university experience and lean into the events that we offer students, connect with our recruitment team, and just really be able to ask questions throughout your application journey. One of the most distinct features of our degrees, not only at the University of East London, but in the UK in general, is the 3-year degree. Now, this is very common across England, not Scotland, but just England. And that's because the Scottish system is based on the American system, but the English system has a very different system to the American system and the Scottish system. Now, we have 3-year degrees for one simple reason. We don't include general education in your degree. Why? Because we start to specialize our UK students from the age of 14. We get them to go from about 10 subjects down to about 6 subjects and down to 4 subjects when they come to their final 2 years of high school equivalent. So when it comes to your actual higher education, we ask them to pick one subject or a double major. So it's 2 subjects combined. So for instance, if you choose to study law, you would only study law. You wouldn't study maths or English or anything unrelated to the law degree. And this goes for any subject that you would study. So it is really great for the students who know what they want to study, but it's not as friendly to the student who's looking to find out along the way what they're planning to study. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, tuition for your first year is around $17,000, and this includes free textbooks. Now, the textbooks won't come in a physical form. You'll get them in an electronic copy, so you'll get access to our database. You can pop whatever name of a book in, and it will give you the electronic copy. So that's something to be aware of, is that you don't have the added cost of free textbooks. You are looking at tuition for your entire degree being around $51,000. That's give and take depending on the exchange rate, but approximately it will be about that amount of money. In terms of entry requirements, we ask for the following. You need a 3.0 GPA and one of the following. Either a 1070 on the SAT, a 23 on the ACT, or 3 AP scores of 3 and above. Now, you only need one of those along with your GPA. We also use a sliding scale at the University of East London, which means, let's say, you have a really great GPA score, but you're not so great at test taking, and you might have got a lower SAT or lower ACT. If it evens out, then that's perfectly fine. It's also worth noting that some programs will require extra. So for instance, if you plan to apply for performing arts, you'll most likely have to have a phone interview or send over a video of an e-audition. If you plan to apply for architecture or any art-based subject, you will be required to send over an electronic copy of your portfolio. If you plan to apply for anything under the governmental subjects, and when I mean governmental, I mean programs that are sponsored by the government. So we're talking about educational subjects or social work. Usually you will also have to have a phone interview. This used to be an in-person interview, but due to COVID, this has now switched to a phone interview. And I think that this will probably be carry on going forward for the considerable amount of time that COVID's in place and maybe even afterwards. So that's something to bear in mind as well, that you might be asked for extra things in addition to your grades. Now, we offer a wide variety of subjects. So we have 6 schools. So we have a School of Architecture, Computing and Engineering, which generally holds architecture, engineering, computer science, but also things like fine art, graphics, interior design, and product design. Then we have a School for Art and Creative Industries, which generally serves things like advertising, very hands-on art-based subjects such as dance, drama, theatre, and it also holds fashion design and marketing as well as journalism. We have different strands of journalism. We have journalism itself, sports journalism, music journalism, and fashion journalism. So journalism is quite a big sector within our school. And I'm sorry, that is actually incorrect on here. It was meant to say the School of Business and Law for the third one in yellow. So that would be accounting, finance, criminology, events, hospitality and tourism, and so forth. Then we have 3 other schools. So we have the School of Education, which serves all our education courses, as well as international development and politics, social work as well as sociology. And then we have the School of Health, Sport and Biosciences, which is everything to do with bioscience, medical physiology, public health, as well as sport and exercise science. Now, we don't offer medicine as such. This is a question we tend to get a lot of, but we offer medical physiology. We also offer biomedical sciences, which you can take and then you can go and do a postgraduate in medicine. So these are ways around the fact that we don't offer medicine as such. And then we also have the School of Psychology, so that serves all of our psychology programs. And our psychology school is very well regarded. So in 2014, our postgraduate area of the psychology school tied first with Oxford and Cambridge because of their research and their work within the psychology sector. So it is one of our more popular programs. Now, probably the thing that gets students most excited coming from the US is the difference in what we give our students for accommodation. So in the US, you typically have a dorm environment, but in the UK, we don't have that at all. So as far as I'm aware, all UK universities offer your own private room. But what can differ from university to university is whether you get access to your own private bathroom. So the University of East London, we offer your own private room and you get your own private bathroom and shower. So you'll see in the left-hand photo that you get a little bed, a little desk area. In the photo, you can't see it, but there's a closet, and then you'll also get a shower room, and then it has a basin and a toilet in it. It isn't a spacious room, it's quite compact, but it completely serves your needs. And the great thing is you get your own personal space. We find that it gives our students much more control over their studies because you don't have to worry about conflicting interests with a roommate. It also means that when you really want to lean in and study, you can study. When you need your own personal space, you can take it. And then when you want to socialize, you can really socialize. So you will also get access to a shared kitchen between 3 to 5 students. And this is a big thing in the UK system, is that we do offer meal plans at the University of East London, but meal plans are generally not taken by UK students. In fact, we've only created them with the international student in mind, because international students are more used to meal plans. But in the UK, students tend to get together, they tend to cook together, and that's a big part of socializing. So that's something to bear in mind. For $7,500 per year, this will include your private room, private bathroom and shower, and a shared kitchen. If you're looking to get meal plans, this will come at an extra cost depending what meal plan you take. So if you are interested in knowing more, do feel free to ask any questions about that. So in terms of sports, for those of you who are interested in competitive sport or really enjoy the Olympics, the University of East London hosted the Team USA basketball team during the 2012 Olympics. So this picture in this slide is of the USA basketball team back in 2012, and they were in our sports dock using our basketball courts. So this has really created a sports legacy for the University of East London that we've just been so happy to kind of, take on since 2012. So we're ranked 39th in the UK for sports, and we're consistently ranked among the top 3 in London for sports as well. Now, if any of you are on this, tuned in and thinking, oh, I really love competitive sports and I'm really good at sports, we offer sports scholarships, particularly for basketball, soccer, and volleyball. We do also offer sports scholarships for athletics and tennis, but the general big ones are basketball, soccer, and volleyball. Now, you might be on the call and thinking, competitive sports, they're not really my jam. That's totally fine too. You can use our sports facilities whether you want to train once a year or whether you want to train every day. We offer free weekly tournaments and exercise classes. So we're a real believer in healthy mind, healthy body makes your whole student experience better. So for instance, we offer exercise classes, yoga, in Pilates, we offer Zumba classes, and we have different sports classes throughout the week at different times from early in the morning to late in the evening so that it suits all schedules. So we We really like our students to know about this, and we think it's a real strong point about the University of East London that we have such a great sports doc. So travel, I mentioned this before, but I'm going to go into a bit more depth about travel within the UK. So public transport in London is world renowned. We were one of the first, or if not the first, I'm not quite sure, cities to create a public transport system of the size that we created it. And what has been so great is we have over 250 different stations across London. So you can get anywhere super easily via the tube. Now, one thing that's really great is that we have the tube that runs from 6 a.m. in the morning to 12 midnight, but then we have the buses that run 24 hours a day. So you'll know them from movies if you haven't seen them in person. They're the ones in the picture, these red double-decker buses. And they will get you anywhere you need to around London. They might not be as quick as a tube, but the great thing is that they're all overground, so you can see a gorgeous scenery whilst you're traveling. Another perk is that because you'll be a student, you'll also get 1/3 off your travel in London, which means that you save a lot of money. And also, we're fully aware that a lot of students who choose to study abroad don't only want to make use of London, they also want to learn more about the UK and Europe itself, because Europe is on our doorstep. Not only that, but a lot of flights across Europe from London are really cheap. And so traveling Europe is something that's very feasible for students on a student budget. So we have 5 airports around the London area, and it means that traveling to Paris or to Greece or to anywhere around Europe is totally viable on a student budget. Not to mention when you need to go back home, you can totally go back home. So I wanted to recap, what are the benefits of studying at the University of East London? How does it differ from the US? Because I've given you a lot of information. So just to recap really quickly, you can complete your bachelor's degree in 3 years instead of 4 years. What's also really cool is that our master's degrees are 1 year instead of 2 years. Sometimes they can be 2 years, but this is very, very rare. So technically, you can come out of high school, start at 18, get your degree by the time you're 21, and take your master's and have your master's degree by the age of 22. Not only do you save a bunch of money, but it puts you on the career ladder a lot quicker than if you were to study in the US. Not only that, but you gain international experience. So, you know, I guess a lot of students think that studying abroad is going to be really expensive and it's not really a viable option. But in fact, sometimes it can be a lot cheaper, and it can mean that you get on the career ladder quicker, which I think is really important to be aware of. Another thing is general education is not required. So if you're really excited about general education and getting stuck in and finding your program, the the English system is maybe not super favorable towards that. But if you're like, wow, I just know exactly what I want to study and I want to hit the ground running, then the English system is great. Tuition fees are less than 17,500. I think there's a bit of conflicting information because it said 17,000 in one slide. So just to make a note of that, I think that it sometimes differs very slightly depending on the exchange rate, but as a general rule, it will fall into 17,000 to 17,500 per year. We accept federal student loans from the US. Now, something worth noting is unfortunately we can't accept grants from the US, and that's because grants only stay within the US. They don't transfer internationally. However, we can accept federal student loans. We can also accept private scholarships from the US as long as that private scholarship provider is happy to transfer those funds abroad. Now, we do offer international scholarships at the University of East London. They tend to be for the first year, and they could vary from anything in dollars from around $1,500 to around $5,000. So this will be deducted straight away from your tuition, and it will be for your first year. We currently don't have anything in terms of scholarships for the second and third year, only for the first year. And in general, across the UK, we don't offer international scholarships, mainly because in the UK, it's a set price for all students and it's quite a low fee. So if you are looking for extra help or extra scholarships, your best bet is to find a private scholarship provider in the US. Another thing to bear in mind is cost for on-campus housing with a private room starts at around $7,000 to $7,500. So if you group that together with tuition, you're looking at $25,000 overall per year across 3 years. A lot of students will sometimes ask, well, how much will it cost overall when you factor in living costs? And we just give a general ballpark range of $31,000. Of course, this is going to massively vary depending on how much you spend and also your lifestyle. But as a general rule, we say $31,000 in total each year, and then that would be times 3. Just a reminder, it's free textbooks for the entire degree. And if we don't have a textbook on our portal, you can always ask for it to be sent to you via the university library for free. You can also save thousands of dollars by not having to own and maintain a car, as London is a commuter city with an on-campus station. And finally, if you decide to study with us, you absolutely love it, and you want to study your master's with us, you will be eligible for an alumni scholarship. So if this is of interest to you, you can apply today. Now, I'm sure we might have some seniors on the line, but we might also have some juniors, but the same system will be now or in next year or the year after. We take applications via the Common App, and that's completely for free. The applications are now open via the Common App, so if you are a senior, you can apply now. As I mentioned before, it is completely free, so if you are planning to apply to only US institutions, but you're thinking, you know what, I might try and see if I can get into the University of East London, and I'll apply, you have absolutely nothing to lose because it comes at no cost to you. So it might be something to think about. Also, you can apply via our website, so directly via our website at the University of East London. And as I mentioned before, if you're really thinking of studying in the UK, you might want to apply via UCAS, which is the UK system. So that ends my presentation, and I'm going to go on to questions now. But I just want to wrap up with this. This is our email. It's americas@uel.ac.uk. I work with a fabulous team of people. I have my colleague Caitlin, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but she actually was a student that came to the University of East London. She was a student from California. She studied the 3 years with us, and now she's working as part of our team. We have my colleague Felicia, who decided to study her master's at the University of East London after studying at UT Austin in Texas, which she then had a sports scholarship with rowing at the University of East London. And then she loved it so much, she decided to work for our team. So she's our senior recruitment manager. And if you're interested in learning a bit more about the journey, studying from the UK, from the US to the UK, you can follow our Instagram. It's called Follow Me to East London. And you can learn a bit more about the journey the US students take when coming to the University of East London. So what I'll do is I'll quickly stop sharing and I'll answer any of your questions. If there's anything that springs to mind, do feel free to pop a question and I'd be more than happy to answer it. So I know that we've had a couple of questions in. So one of the questions coming in is, would getting my GE at community college before applying and transferring be a smart or feasible idea? And would it have any effect on the price? So thank you so much for asking that question. It actually is a very important question. It's because we don't do general education when it comes to higher education in the UK. If you wanted to pursue your degree internationally in the UK, it does not serve you best to do general education at community college, because let me give you this example. If you come straight out of high school and if you meet our requirements, you can come straight into our first year. But if you choose to take general education at community college and then apply to University of East London, you'd still come straight into the first year, because those general education certificates and programs that you take will have no way of transferring to our UK education system unless you take, let's say you study law and you take only general education and loads of law programs. Maybe you'd be able to move up, but usually not. So general education, if you plan to think of the UK as your future move, is not the best option. So I think it's a great question to ask. And for those of you who might be thinking, oh, I'm thinking of going to community college for 2 years and transferring, we do accept transfer students, that's not a problem. But again, something to bear in mind is if you tend to take general ed courses, you are looking at transferring into the first year. Now, obviously, it is a 3-year degree, so I know in the US you might usually transfer into the 3rd year and only complete 2 years, but in the UK you might have to start from the beginning and complete 3 years. It really depends on the courses you take, but as I mentioned before, it's not a straightforward process if you tend to focus on general education courses. So a couple of other questions, so feel free to pop any questions in, but a couple of other questions that tend to spring to mind for students is probably the most common one from parents is, how safe is the London area? Do students feel at home when they go over there? Do we have students maybe think, oh, I'm not sure if this is the right thing for me when they arrive to the UK? So I'm going to kind of encapsulate that all in one answer. So I have lived in London for 7 years and I've never had an issue. And I think that goes to that is the same thing for pretty much any city globally. As long as you keep, awareness of your surroundings and, use common sense, living in a city is perfectly safe. So that's something I really want to reiterate, firstly. And secondly, for students wondering, how do I gauge whether studying abroad is the right fit for me? I think it's an interesting one. I think firstly, if you have a real love to travel, that's probably your first indicator that maybe studying abroad could be a really interesting thing to pursue. Now, obviously there's studying abroad internationally with the University of East London or studying abroad for your full degree, which is what we're offering you. And that's really the full 3-year experience. And obviously there is studying abroad as part of your degree as well, which most US institutions offer. So, and there's pros and cons for both, because the pros of studying with us mean that you really get to delve in, you get to experience, you get to take internships, and then you get to return back home with all this global experience under your belt, which is a lot harder to do when you only do a couple of months. And what I find from students that tend to do a couple of months is that in a couple of months, they realize that they wish they had done a much longer program. But I would say your first indicator to know whether this is a good fit for you is if you love to travel. And also, if you have real curiosity for the world, if you want to learn about different cultures, if you think to yourself, oh, maybe one day I'd like to live abroad, those are all indicators that studying abroad would be a really interesting thing to pursue. In terms of our American community at the University of East London, I think I might give you a bit more facts about that. In general, we have 100 US students from the US join us every year. And these students come from all over the United States. We do tend to have higher concentration from states such as California, Texas, New York, New Jersey, but we also have students from all around the US. So that's something to bear in mind. I think one other thing that might be worth noting is that we have sometimes students saying, oh, this all sounds really exciting, but do you offer short programs? Unfortunately, we don't offer short programs currently. What we do offer is the full 3-year experience. So if you are interested in this, it is the full experience. And if you're interested in more of a short-term program, that is something that you would need to pursue with an American institution as part of like a cross collaboration with a university that they're linked to in the UK or possibly around the world. And I think it's really important also to address how international degrees transfer back to the US. And this is one of my most common questions from students. So to give you an idea, most UK degrees transfer very easily back to the US. But there are a few exceptions, and those are mainly in 3 areas. If you plan to study law, if you plan to study medicine, or if you plan to study law, medicine, I think those are probably our only 2, possibly education as well. And this is because each country has their own system of operating in law, in medicine, in education. So I think it's really important to be aware of that. It doesn't mean that you can't study those degrees in the UK, but it does mean that you need to be prepared and aware that when you return back to the US, it might not be a seamless transfer all over. It might mean that you have to take a couple of community college courses. Or for instance, as an example, the law degree, if you wanted to practice in the US but you had a UK degree, you would have to take the American bar exam in the US to actually practice law. So all of these things mean that you might have to do a bit of added extra when you return home if you plan to return home. But obviously, if an opportunity arises where you can make the UK your home, then obviously the UK degree will work very favorably within the UK. I think it's also important to make a note of the University of East London and its legacy within the London area. So we are based just across the water from the financial district, which is a really exciting place to be because we really encourage students to not only study hard and make the use of their educational opportunities, but we also encourage them to really take internships whilst they study. Because if you choose, well, for your career in the future, employers are going to look at your education, but they're also going to look at what clubs and societies have you been a part of? What internships have you taken? And especially in the global world that we live in now, to be able to say, oh, I've had an internship in London or around the UK, it really puts you on the map as being someone who can work with different cultures, who understands about the global context. So rather than saying, oh, I understand different cultures, but not necessarily having anything tangible to state that you know about different cultures, we find that our students studying at the University of East London and returning back to the States really do very well because they're able to say, I have worked on a global scale. And they are able to show employers why they stand out from the crowd. So I think that's really important to make a note and make you aware of. I just want to finish this presentation by thanking you so much for tuning in and listening. It's been a pleasure to speak to you today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at americas@uel.ac.uk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miss Annabelle, so much for sharing all that information. I want to come right now. I've never been to London and I would love to come. So I was taking lots of notes here. Just looks like a wonderful city and really an interesting opportunity. I sort of like the idea of no math or science personally. There was never my good subject. So I kind of like that idea of being able to focus on just what you want to study for your future. So I want to thank all of the students for joining us this evening. When we close the session here, you will have a quick survey of 4 questions, and we would appreciate your feedback. I also want to remind you that this session is recorded and will be hosted on our website at moacac.org in the next few days. And lastly, on that website, you can also find sessions for the next couple of evenings, as well as 3 weeks worth of recorded sessions from colleges across the country, internationally, as well as many topics like college essay writing as well. So again, on behalf of MOACAC, I would like to thank Ms. Annabelle for sharing her time with us. It's 2 a.m. there, guys. So really want a great shout out for her dedication to college and to students of Missouri. So thank you again, Annabelle, for sharing with us. And I hope you get some sleep now. Good evening, everyone.